And we are here with my second ever Thinkpad. This is the Lenovo Thinkpad T500 that I got in 2012 used. You can already tell that there's something wrong with it, but we'll get into that in a minute. This thing, as delivered, had, if I remember correctly, I know it's still got the same CPU in it now. It's got an Intel Core 2 Duo P8400, clocked at 2.26 gigahertz, one of the slowest ones that you could get. In fact, I think it was the slowest one that you could get. I think it had 2 gigabytes of RAM when I got it. It was either 1 or 2. It's DDR3, so I couldn't upgrade it out of the box. And I think I had a video where I tried to upgrade it and then realized that it was DDR3 and couldn't upgrade it. It had a 160 gigabyte hard drive from the factory, and it was running Windows 7, which is the last great release of Windows, if you ask me. Although there are still some things about Windows 7 that I think were just not really all that great compared to XP. I didn't jump ship to Windows 7 immediately anyways. I stuck it out with XP for a very long time before I upgraded to 7 and stayed there. And really accepted staying there. It's got the original keyboard, and that is something I mentioned because the new Thinkpad does not have its original keyboard. And it's still having problems with it. In fact, I just replaced this key a couple days ago. For this thing to have its original keyboard and there to be nothing wrong with it is pretty damn good, if you ask me. It's a little dirty. You can obviously see that there's some specks of dust here and there. But, well, this system pretty much ran 24/7 for the longest time. And, well, it's obviously taken some abuse over then. The fan no longer works properly. In fact, I'm probably going to take it apart in this video to investigate why the fan is making some metal clinking noises. There might be something inside it. There might not be. I don't really know. The hard drive was dead out of the box. That was the first thing I had to replace with this, was the hard drive. I still have it, and it still kind of works. But I just use it as a test drive. I put a 500 gigabyte Western Digital blue hard drive in it. And I've since replaced that with a 120 gigabyte SSD. I upgraded it to Windows 8.1. Actually, I think it first got Windows 8, and then it got Windows 8.1. I'm still not the world's biggest fan of 8 and 8.1, but with Classic Shell, they're certainly a whole lot usable than they were. It has a different optical drive than it came with. That's, what is that? It's not a dual layer drive, but it's a DVD RW. It's got the FireWire port. There's your network switch for turning off the wireless radios. Headphone microphone. SD card slot. The 14-inch T500s I don't think have this. Hard drive bay is over there. It's a Serial 8TA and a Serial 8TA optical drive. The first set with a Serial 8TA optical drive. The 61 that came before this did not have those, but the 400 and 500 do. Still got that nice rubberized finish. And the Lenovo logo. PCMCIA card slots. 3 USB, of which one is broken. There's the Ethernet. DisplayPort. VGA. Cooling fan slot. On the back, we've got the other cooling. I think that's the intake, and that's the exhaust over there. DC input, the battery. You could get 3 different sizes of battery for this. This is the smallest one. And a Kensington lock. I thought this thing had a modem on it. Actually, I think it does. I'm just a moron, and I didn't point it out. Yeah, the modem's over there. Of course, this is an Ultra Bay. You can remove that and replace it with a hard drive bay, if you really wanted to. Alright, I suppose that there are a lot of you who probably know what that actually means. But if you don't, what that means is it means that there is something wrong with either the battery or the charging circuit. And I'm here to tell you that I don't quite know what it is, but I suspect that it's the battery. See, the battery in this thing has been a big letdown since it was brand new. And I've never really liked it. Of course, I never really had a reason to use the battery because I've never actually really, how do I want to put this? I've never used it as a portable system until I phased it out of regular everyday use in favor of that thing. But I have to say that the battery was just a piece of junk since I got it. And it didn't really improve. This thing probably got about the least amount of runtime out of any computer that I've owned. And that includes the few Toshiba Tecras that I used to have as main computers back in the early 2000s when the batteries in those things weren't total trash. They got more runtime than this did when I got it. And those computers by that point, those were from the really late 90s. So they were 5 years old then and had not been refurbished. This had been. So I don't understand why the battery has always been just a massive letdown like it is. But it was, and now I guess it's finally bit the rest of the dust. So I'm going to have to get a new battery for this, if I even care enough to get a new battery from this, and I really don't, to be perfectly honest, because I don't use it very much anymore. Basically, the 410 over there has taken over for this thing and pushed this thing off to the sideline, although every once in a while I'll take it to work with me, because I never like to take one machine all the time to work, because that just wears them out, and I've had problems with doing that in the past, wearing out laptops like that, but anyways. The other thing that happened to this, it was dropped shortly after I replaced it with the 410 as a main computer. It was dropped onto a concrete floor. I can't remember which corner it was. I think it was this corner, and that would be why the beauty plug isn't there anymore. It was dropped on this corner, and that was really bad because I thought that would have killed the screen, but nope, the screen isn't dead. The screen is actually, the original display is sitting up there. It does have a little bit of mishy-mashy stuff up here in this corner. I think it's this corner. If not, it's this corner. It's one of these two. It's got a little bit of black crud in that corner, and that's why I took it out and replaced it with a larger resolution panel that I'd taken out of a T61P that stopped working. I think I uploaded a video of that T61P. It had the GPU failed in it, but either way, that's not really privy to this. I replaced it with this screen, and I have to say that although this is a better high-resolution panel than I've seen in a lot of laptops, it's not great. I would still much rather have that other screen up there, but of course, given that replacing a display is such a massive pain in the rear end on one of these, I'm not going to replace it again if I don't have to. But the problem with this screen is that the backlight is really just not up to snuff. It's really dim, and it washes out almost completely in bright sunlight, which is rather annoying. When I'm sitting at work, I'm usually sitting in an area where there's skylights and there's, windows and sunlight, and the sun just washes this thing completely out, and I can't use it. So, that's why I've really stopped using it, is because the screen has just got, it leaves a lot to be desired. But then again, all high-resolution panels are like that. This is a 1920 by 1080 display. Actually, I think it's by 1200, not 1080. It's a 16 by 10, I believe. And again, I would prefer a 4x3 screen, but the 400 and 500 do not come in 4x3 versions, at least not as far as I remember. But that being said, this thing has served me well, and it will continue to serve me well, because it still works, even though the battery is now dead. I don't know what exactly I'm going to do with it now that the battery is toast, but I suppose I could probably still use it at work. It's just not as portable as it once was. Let's fire it up. Oh yes, it had a 160 gigabyte hard drive in it when it fell on that corner. You can see the screen is a little dim. We can turn the camera light off. We don't really need that for this. I'm not sure if the backlight is failing. I don't think it is, because usually those turn pink when they start to go bad. And I see a hint of pinkish in the screen, but it's not really all that pink. It's just a really dim backlight. But this had a 160 gigabyte Hitachi hard drive in it. When I dropped it, that drive is still around, but it's got an issue with the head stack where it makes a very loud clunking noise every once in a while. It's got no problems otherwise. Passes every single test, but it makes that awful noise. I don't quite know why it does that. We can see that we've still got the P8400 CPU, but that we've got 4 gigabytes of memory installed. I should see if there's a later BIOS for this thing. I don't think there is. I think the 2011 version was the last one. Otherwise, everything else is pretty much as it was set. So let's go ahead and boot it up into Windows 8.1. Now this system I've actually configured to use my own Microsoft account. I don't really generally like doing that, but for whatever reason I felt the need to do it on this one. I have no idea what the deal is with the automatic image stabilizer on this camera. It's really kind of annoying. There you can see my lovely tribute to Windows 8. It's also an old photo. I can't remember what year that was. I think that was 2011 that I took that picture of that spider. That was a massive spider. That picture is obviously blown up so that the spider's bigger, but I'd say that spider was maybe about ½ an inch in size. That's a rather large spider. Well, you can see I've got a mess on my desktop. That's an old background. It really is. I might have to put a new one on here, but there you go. There's Windows 8.1 with Classic Shell installed. I would never install Windows 8 without installing Classic Shell. It's really the only reason why this is even usable at all. Here we can see more information. Windows 8.1 Pro. No pen or touch input because I think that those are practically useless on a laptop. Though I have a tablet, and it's pretty decent on that. It's running the latest SeaMonkey, which I think is kind of a piece of garbage. There you can see that I've definitely got to do some offloading on this. But of course, I don't really have a lot of storage space left. I'm going to have to get a larger hard drive for some of this stuff. But either way, I don't think there's really much else that I can think of to demonstrate what the system turned on. There we can see that the battery is not charging at all. Just the lens cap is really getting in my way. It's like a tripod almost. Let's open up Core Temp. You can have a look at all of that. Search for Intel driver updates. I think what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to search for a BIOS update and see if this has actually got one. Alright, so as it turns out, there is an updated BIOS for this. So I'm going to try and install that. At least I think so anyways. So we'll see. Update Thinkpad BIOS. Before continuing, make sure that a charged battery pack is installed. Well, I don't really have much of an ability to do that. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to plug it into that UPS that's sitting over there. So hold on just a minute. Well, that's an interesting reaction to being plugged into a UPS. I don't know what happened there, but that's clearly not what was supposed to happen. Install. Update BIOS. I have it plugged into a UPS. There's nothing else I can do there. Turn off the system and connect any... Really? It wants me to connect a I don't have a working battery. Nobody cares. So I can't update the BIOS because I've got a bad battery on the system. That's ridiculous. Well, you know what? I might just use WinFlash. WinFlash might be able to get around that. Alright, so forget that. That seems to be a little bit more difficult than it seemed. I don't understand what all of these stupid files are for. WinFlash, when I go ahead and run WinFlash utility here, another app... Really? Oh, there it is. It gives me this. I don't know what that is. I've got no idea. Those files don't exist here, first of all. Flash ABL is not a file that's in this folder, and it's not a file that's in any of those folders. So, what's this doing? I have no idea. I'd have to disassemble the WinUPTP.exe file right there in order to figure out what's going on. So we're going to go on a little bit of a rant instead. I don't know why Lenovo decided to do this. And I don't care about any of the pushback I'm going to get from saying this. It is the stupidest decision they could have possibly ever taken. I don't care about the fringe cases, and yes, I just called them fringe cases, where some know-nothing takes their computer and plugs it only into AC power without having the battery. Or they only run the system on battery. The power goes out. the system shuts down. You got a break-in sitting in front of you. Yes, I completely know that these are problems. They are fringe problems. Very much fringe problems that are very unlikely to ever happen. And furthermore, see this? This system is plugged into AC power, which you can probably see back there. And this AC power brick, excuse the mess, is going over here into an uninterruptible power supply, which will keep the system up in the event the power goes out. So answer me this. Why is it now not possible for me to update the BIOS? Seems kind of retarded. And yes, I just used that R word again. And furthermore, this is the Lenovo official forum. All of the people on this forum that are saying, well, you should just buy a replacement battery on used, you should buy a generic battery, you should do this, you should do that, it's not worth the risk, all of you are idiots. And that is my honest opinion. You are not solving the problem by saying that you should buy a battery for 5 minutes. Actually, it takes less than 5 minutes. It takes probably, maybe about 40 seconds to update the BIOS on one of these things. So I have to spend, I don't know, maybe $20 plus $10 shipping, wait for 3 weeks, and then get a replacement battery, and then only use that battery for 40 seconds to update a BIOS. That's ridiculous. That is not a solution to a problem. That is a problem in and of itself. And furthermore, there are people on this thread that are saying that this check is absolutely necessary, and no, it's not.